Welcome to another episode of Just One More Fix. This is James. With me this episode is Lacey.
Hey.
You can find us online at justonmorefix.com or on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix. If you like us, you can support us on Patreon, and you can give us a rating and review at iTunes or wherever you find us at. In this episode, we're going to have another gaming roundtable. And now, it's time to get our gaming fix.
I'm Willie D. Nelson from All Things Good and Nerdy, a pop culture podcast, part of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other tantalizingly geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Couple quick announcements before we get this thing started. First off, my 2 games for Troubadours at HoosierCon are posted, so if you want to come out and try out some awesome Shakespearean disaster and playwriting with some PBTA mechanics, you can check that out at HoosierCon in Indianapolis on March 23rd is when my 2 games are set up. So I've got 1 game in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. So hope to see you guys there and we can get some awesome gaming going on. Additionally to that, we have another Indie RPG Day happening February 26th, and we're going to be playing a PIP core system ran by Lacey, and if we have time, I'm going to run some Mothership. So hope to see you guys there. That's on Sunday the 26th from 2 to 6, and should be a good time. So this episode just sort of spun up out of a discussion we had during our pre-show that sort of developed into a much larger discussion. We decided that we were approaching what would become an actual episode. So the beginning of this one kind of cuts in because the mics weren't entirely on yet, and we were just having a discussion about different games, and it developed into something much larger. So yeah, here it is. Without any further ado, here is the rest of our episode as we record this thing at the end of it all, actually, because, well, oops.
Like a guest NPC or whatever. Mm-hmm. About how to handle someone else helping you do your game or whatever.
Right.
Is it even fair to call them an NPC? Because they're not a player, because they don't have a character sheet. They're not like playing the game exactly. Is there like another third-party term for somebody that's not a GM, but
Robin Laws doesn't call them, in his games, doesn't call them NPCs. He calls them
special guest stars.
GMCs. It's a game master character. It's not a non-playing character. It's because that's fair. So, with the idea that the game master is also playing, which I kind of agree with. Mm-hmm. So, but back like with the Kurt being on the Night Witches thing, I was kind of I could sit down with someone else and collaborate about building a game and not have any problems, right? Because I've done that. I've done that before, right? And me and Kurt did that with the Hillcon thing where we had the cultists and investigators, right? And I don't have a problem with that. The problem with the thing that makes me iffy about what with the Night Witches part of it is that, first off, that I really like that game, and I don't want to, like, if it gets messed up, I want it to be my fault. Do you know what I mean? I don't want it. I would rather it be that as opposed to someone playing another character in the game that kind of derails things or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not suggesting that he would do that intentionally, but things happen. Do you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And also, I don't know, like, having not been there for the flavor of how the games go and all of like the interaction there, I don't know how well whatever this character is will mesh with the group of characters in the game and also with the group of actual physical people at the table.
But he's not supposed to mesh.
I know.
That's the whole point.
Well, that's the thing, though, is I'm back and forth about what do I want that character to do? Do you know what I mean? And part of me wants to decide that in the moment at the table when he arrives, depending on how you react to that. And if I make those decisions in the moment, then I can do that. But if I give Kurt guidance when he, because he says, give me whatever you want, you can lay out however you want this character to go and his own goals and whatever, and he'll stick to it, and I believe he will. But the problem comes when that if I want to adapt something on the fly and go a different direction with it, then I can't do that because it's out of my hands at that point. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
So it's an ego problem.
It's not about my ego. Like, I'm so cool.
That's what it feels like.
It's more of a control thing as opposed to ego.
It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not. Like, control is like, I'm so good. But the game is going really well and I really like it, but it's more about like, what if we have set the game in motion this way, right? And then I decide that I think I want to course correct and go a different direction because I have more of the pieces that I'm moving and juggling and things I want to kind of do, right? But whoever plays this other character doesn't have all those pieces. So you know what I mean? So I don't know.
But he doesn't need to have all those other pieces.
I'm not saying that you would have to have all the pieces, but like when, I don't know, it's just like those split decisions you make when you're running a game. You're like, ooh, these things are lining up and I can do this, right? Then I'm not able to do that necessarily. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I just don't think it's that big of a hang up.
Well, the other part of it is I don't know what I want to do with that whole situation.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So that's
like you need to have clear goals and like
I don't disagree.
All that in mind, but
right. And so that when if I had that in mind, then I think it wouldn't be an issue. But not having it in mind makes me even more leery to do it because then I'm like, I don't know what guidance I want to give you. And then being unsure of what guidance I might give you, then it's like I might just change that because another idea sparks and I can find something better because I'm not sure of what I want to do. So that's where it makes me leery to do it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's just, that's the control aspect of it is because for me, sometimes when I don't know what to do, in the moment when we're playing, the pressure is on me and I have to make a decision now. And then I'm able to just sort of make it work. You know what I mean? Because I have to, as opposed to having all this time to figure out what I want to do with it, right? Because when we're playing in the moment and I have to make a decision, right? Well, I let what is currently happening in the game and the themes that are happening and that kind of stuff sort of guide me. And I'm kind of in that flow and in the groove of doing it. Right now, I'm not in the groove at all, right? I'm so far out of the groove because we're not playing. So I don't know where to go with it.
Like, I get that. I don't know. But I think that it would be worth the effort to do it.
I do, too.
Because I think it would be really cool.
I do, too. I agree. I just don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. That's really what it comes down to. The other part of it is I need to edit the most recent session because I feel like I would have an easier time to make decisions.
Yeah. Because I think either right after the session or after you edit it, like you definitely have to like have it fresh in your head when you're
the other part of it was
to think about that.
Well, I agree that it could happen anytime because it's just on a schedule and this inspection is supposed to arrive and just happen, right? Mm. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to have it work with the flow of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I realize there's a part of it that I can just say, he's here now because that's just the way it works. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain kind of awesome to that. But at the same time, I kind of want it to sort of fit in there.
Yeah. Well, we're at a spot now where it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Basically, I got to get the stuff edited and then I'll have a point where I can make a decision. Because that was the problem with it. I think really the source of the problem is that there's so much that happens in those games, and when I get to edit it, I get to really pay attention to what's happening, and then that allows me to make a decision, more well-informed decision about what to do. So I need to get that done, basically. So it's all good. So yeah, I don't know. The other part of it I feel a little awkward about is like we sit down and we play that game, right? And usually our sessions are around 4.5 hours, right? Mm-hmm. Unedited time, right? 4.5 hours of real time. So one of the things I think don't want to have happen is like go to all this effort to have Kurt come out and we're going to do this and it's cool and whatever. And we do it. And then it's like a 40-minute scene and then the moment comes and passes and it's like, all right, cool. Now, like, are you going to hang out? Just watch us play? 'Cause that's not cool. Do you know what I mean?
It's fine if he's okay with it.
I know.
I think that's kind of the part of the concession that you make in doing something like that.
I know. I understand.
And it's not like he just shows up to record. Like, we eat beforehand and hang out and everything else.
I'm well aware.
But making it weird.
I just feel, I don't know. Like, I want it to be cool and I want it to be a thing and I don't want it to suck and I want it to be worthwhile for it to be part of the story, and I want it to be worthwhile for Kurt to do as well, and I just,
I want Kurt to come in costume. I know nobody can see him. I don't care.
I don't know that he has a Gestapo out, or not a Gestapo,
it doesn't have to be spot on, but
outfit, yeah.
Some kind of suit and hat combo.
Do you remember that old Soviet officer's hat we saw at that thrift store in Champaign?
Champaign?
Yeah, that was fun. Just a random weird thing to find or whatever, you know.
I don't think that was in Champaign. That might have been in St. Louis.
No, that was in Champaign.
Because that was a really big thrift store.
Yeah, it's the one that's on University, just past the train station on the left-hand side. We're also due for a gaming roundtable anytime if we want to do one of those, but I don't know that we have enough of stuff to yammer on about. Although we played a little Root, that's for sure.
I like it when I'm to do the gaming roundtable, if we could, like at the end of February, beginning of March, because I'll be done with my 4-week challenge then, and my goal was to pick my 5 favorite gaming blogs.
Or we could just do...
And I'm reading like a different one every day, so that's like 28 at least gaming blogs. Yeah.
I thought you were just reading a different blog post, not a different altogether blog.
No, so far I've read like 8 or 9 different blogs.
Oh, Jesus. That's a lot of work. Because at a certain point, you got to keep
That's why I was asking for suggestions. I was like, I need more blogs to read.
Are there a lot of 5e blogs?
I don't know, because I don't read any of them, because I don't do 5e.
Okay, well, that's fair. I just didn't know if, like...
I'm sure that material could be potentially useful still, but...
Seems like a lot of the topics on 5e.
I like the one that Todd gave me, even though it's Night Black Agents, and I've never run that, but the 2 that I read from it were still pretty cool. I also like they use the term Renfielded like as a like a verb.
Yeah.
I was like, that's hilarious. Yeah. Oh, Renfield.
Yeah. Oh, poor guy.
I like his character in Penny Dreadful. Penny Dreadful. They do a good job.
Like a cross between Penny Dreadful and Cloverfield? That's
it was a cross between Renfield and Penny Dreadful.
Oh, okay. So I'm super excited for that Penny Dreadful Deadwood Casket Town or whatever it's called. Is that what's
Casket Land?
Casket Land, yeah. Because when I was like, no, it's like this, and like we had that like So she listened to the episode and was like, spotting on, and I was like, oh, that's like really what you're going for. That's really cool in my mind. Do you know what I mean? You know, because like those are 2. I really like Deadwood. I really, really like super like Penny Dreadful. You know, and I really like the concept of that. I've always hated the idea of making a World of Darkness game that involves all the supernaturals. Not necessarily all of them, but like where you might have several in a game. It just doesn't seem fun. But then watching that show, and it's just so good.
It works in Monster Hearts.
Yeah, but that's more drama thing as opposed to, well...
Penny Dreadful is super light on the drama.
I'm thinking out loud, I realize, but, you know... Well, I guess part of it might be that when I sit... We should just make this a start of the recording, like, forever ago, and just done this as a...
Aren't you recording this?
It's recording now, yeah, it's true. I could just do it this way. That's fine. So my thought is that when you play Vampire, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants the feeling of Vampire. So you want this, you know, I'm a monster and humanity and politics and all that kind of stuff, right?
And power. Don't forget power.
Right. But you want that's the vampire feel you're chasing, right? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, if you bust out werewolf, you want the werewolf feel of, you know, my pack versus that pack and the alpha male struggle and how does the moon affect things and power and rage and all that comes along with that, right? And then when you play Wraith, you want shadow and the struggle against oblivion in my shadow and the passion of trying to stay alive or whatever, not alive, or however you want to say that, right?
There's that same fight with mortality.
Right.
You know, what it is to be a human and coping with the fact that you're not really, but you're still...
Yeah, but you definitely want to go to oblivion, right? You know, so there's that struggle. And,
well, I mean, for all 3 of them, though, it's the human... Right. It's a human struggle.
True. But, like, they each have their own kind of flavor that makes them a different game, right? And different themes that they emphasize. So, like, the core of them is very similar, but the feel of your average vampire game is not the same as the core of the average feel of a Wraith game, right? And that's why I want to play those games.
Wraith feels much more hopeless to me.
I agree. That's part of it, though. I feel like it's supposed to be there. But, like, so when I tell you we're going to play Vampire, right? You come down with your primed for this is the game, right? And likewise for all the other ones. But now when you say we're going to play a game where I'm a Wraith and you're a vampire and Carrie's a werewolf and Lee's a mage, I feel like what happens is that in having all of those flavors, now you have none of them because there's not enough time in the game to focus on my Wraith challenges and your vampire challenges, right? It's like we just get a little bit of a dabble of the flavor, but not enough to actually fully get the experience. Do you know what I'm saying? And in doing so, it sort of like waters it all down.
The focus changes for the players too.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not competing against like other vampires anymore, you know, like...
Or if you are, it's only kind of
the struggle is different.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like that's that thing that's happening in the background of my character's life right now. It's not the foreground plot of my character or whatever. Right. So, yeah, and it's just we've done it sometimes. You know, several times.
It's one of my favorite games, so I don't care that you say that it's watered down. Which game? But when we were each a different kind of character.
Well, okay. So let me walk back everything I just said, right? And those are the experiences that I had when we did those games where there wasn't some larger, really solid unifying thing among everybody, right? There was kind of a thread that went through each of our characters.
But I feel like that you could say that about any game where there isn't thought into the connection between the players.
That may be, but like...
It's just an important component of the game.
So hang on. So in this case, the example you're mentioning, you were a...
Carrie was a werewolf. I think... I want to say I was a mage, but then I'm kind of like...
No, I think Lee was going to be a mage.
Lee was going to be the mage.
And you were a vampire.
That sounds right.
Okay, so in that case, right?
Many years ago.
Right. But you were also all siblings, right? You were all from the same family. Mm-hmm. And so there was always this tie to bind you guys together, to bring you together. So the story wasn't about the fact that you were a vampire. The story was about the fact that there was this family that had this sort of curse put on you guys where this stuff was going to happen, right? And that was the story of the game, not the story that you're not, like, you being a vampire is part of the stat, but that's one component of the overall arc of the story, right?
Right.
And you guys all had this unifying thing together. Now, I suppose you could set up a game similar to that where not necessarily everyone is family or something, but it just didn't seem to have the same ring to it, you know, when I had done those games in the past. And to be fair, I played in a lot of them, but I don't think I ran a lot of those. I think the only one that I really ran was the one with you guys.
Two things, completely unrelated.
Okay.
I mean, they're related to what you're talking about, but not related to each other. First of all, speaking of families and Dark Ages and medieval, how awesome would it be to play a Borgia's game?
Oh, yeah. That could be pretty wicked cool.
It just comes to mind because I was listening and they were mentioned heavily in the book I'm listening to now about poisons.
Oh, right on.
And because of the end that they come to, and it was suspected that both Alexander and what's his name? It starts with like a J sound. He's his son.
Julian?
No.
Julius?
No. It's not a name that like I've ever heard anywhere other than as this Borgia.
Oh, okay.
It's this one. Oh, Jezere. I was like, it's spelled with a C. That's what it's pronounced. Yeah, Jezere, Borgia. Anyway, so him and Alexander, it's both suspected of poison by like that's like a monarch of another country. Anyway, but they all had a fever, so they suspect they may have actually died of malaria.
Oh, okay.
And they all got infected while they were, like, the three of them were eating together. But the talk was that, like, they had tried to poison this other guy, and they had accidentally shared from the same bottle. And so the Pope, Alexander Borgia, but that's not his Pope name. He has, like, a different Pope name.
Right. Pope Pius the 12th or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Something popey.
So I just got the message. This is kind of cool and exciting. Hello, Wraith 20th backer. Here is a link to the discounted Wraith 20 map of Stygia stretch goal print on demand.
What is Stygia?
That is the city in the underworld, the main city.
Oh, okay.
In Wraith.
Yeah.
Or Stygia. It's Stygia. So I don't know. Depends on how you want to pronounce that. That's really cool. I may actually do that one.
Cool.
Right on.
Oh, second unrelated thought that's vampire-y, and we said something about Renfield, so of course you think Dracula, right? So, endless debate. Dracula, What clan is Dracula?
Old Clan Tzimisce.
Old Clan, why Tzimisce? There's no mention whatsoever. Gangrel, 100% Gangrel.
He has to have the soil to sleep in. That's their disadvantage.
True. He has none of the other traits. Well, no, Tzimisce have animalism too, don't they?
Dominate.
Yeah, okay. He just didn't take Fleshcraft because that wasn't cool enough for him?
That's Old Clan. Old Clan doesn't have Fleshcraft.
What does the Old Clan have? What's their third?
Auspex, Animalism, Dominate.
Okay, fair enough.
Old Clan Tzimisce. Done. It's not even a debate for me. It's like, whatever argument you have, I don't know. It's hard to beat the soil thing, you know.
There's a flaw that does that too, though, right? Because he also can only cross running water during certain times of day, and like the actual holy stuff affects him, and garlic and all that. You know?
I think, but like, there's no clan that has there is one that is repulsed by holy objects. That's the Bali, but he's not a Bali. Yeah, I think it's
Gangrel's the only one that has
Protean.
That turns you into an animal, though, right?
Yeah. But Auspex,
so he could learn that from somebody
animalism.
else,
Yeah, animalism also has subsumed the spirit. So in theory, he could possess a wolf or whatever. But he
turns into a bat.
Yeah,
he controls the wolves, but he turns into a bat.
He also kind of becomes a wolf man in one part of it, doesn't he?
No, he controls the wolves.
Okay,
sort of like force of will kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. No, I remember. So yeah, no, it's easy for me. I think it's Old Clan's amazing. It's done. Plus, that's what it's what he is. You know, it's where like so much of the tradition of the Tzimisce comes out of that area, and the superstitions that are from there or whatever.
There's just lots of disciplines that he incorporates that aren't, you know.
Well, yeah, but it's like a lot of things in the fiction they don't comply with the way the game rules work or whatever.
Right.
You know?
No, I'm just if you had to build Dracula the Elder,
it would be Old Clan Tzimisce.
I still think I would make a Gangrel.
No, but like the Gangrel don't have, like, he's got a connection to that city and that ground and he won't leave it.
Well, they have a territorial thing.
Yeah, but... And
I'm still pretty sure there's a flaw that you can take that has something to do with like the ground that you have to... Mm-hmm. I could be wrong about that though.
But he just seems so much like the aristocracy too. And that's not traditionally a Gangrel thing true. Too.
But Tzimisce are so disconnected from things too. Like,
not Old Clan.
See, I just don't know that much about Old Clan Tzimisce.
So the what it basically boils down to is you have all of the Dracula tropes and the Tzimisce stuff without the flesh crafting. So they believe if I'm remembering correctly, there's this thing where they believe the flesh crafting is sort of like a disease or a dirty, bad kind of a thing. So they don't practice it and they stay away from it. And they
you say like Old Clan, but like Dark Ages Tzimisce, they still had vicissitude. So how old are we talking?
It is a
one generation away from Cain old.
It is a problem in the canon. Okay, so because Tzimisce, their antediluvian, in fact, has fleshcraft and is like the creator of it. However, right. I don't know. It's been too long since I remember
it's not really
a lot of
like
that stuff.
So much Old Clan is like some sort of weird purist faction, like.
I guess you could look at it that way too, but they view fleshcraft as sort of like a blight or a disease kind of a thing. So they don't practice it. But fundamentally, other than that, they're very similar to Tzimisce. It's a bit kind of like if you combine Tzimisce and Ventru together, right? And Tzimisce are very Ventru-like anyway in a lot of ways because they're they're the Ventru of the Sabbat, you know what I mean, in a lot of ways.
I just never pictured them being as like humanity manipulative. Because in their road, it's sort of built much differently than the Road of Kings. Right. So their focus is so very different. That's like it's just beyond these simple politics of mortals. You know what I mean?
Part of it too, though, is
whereas
that
Ventru are more like control and fingers and everything.
Right.
Kind of.
But part of it in the Tzimisce that we have in our games, a lot of them are almost always on the path of metamorphosis, but they're not required to be. You know what I'm saying? So you could have fleshcraft and not be on the path of metamorphosis. It just sort of seems to fit it so well. Right. And that's the Tzimisce that everyone knows and loves, or hates rather. So, but if you're in the Dark Ages, it's real easy, like to quite literally be on Path of Kings. That's almost the most logical one for them if you're not going to be on Path of metamorphosis is to be on the road of kings.
Well, Path of Humanity certainly doesn't make any sense.
Definitely true. Definitely true. We could be a cool Tzimisce on the Path of Humanity and just like be a plastic surgeon and make everyone like fix flaws in people and be the nicest of Tzimisce ever. And I just, I'm
going to be a Tzimisce on the road of heaven.
I make angels. I don't make war ghouls and foes. I make angels. So walk around and fix ailments in people. You could be like, you could be curing leprosy, quite literally. Done.
I think we're just going to talk about vampires this podcast. So I went to that ephemera blog, right? And so
what is it?
Ephemera, but it's like Karloff Blogspot or something. I'll send it to you so you can link it in the show notes or whatever. But there's a post on there about like all these mega rich people that own mega yachts.
Okay.
Right. So like your yacht is not big enough. Mm-hmm. I need like 3 stories above ground, 2 stories below ground. Mm-hmm. And they go into all this stuff. But they were giving like plot seeds for why you would need to go on the boat to like try and steal or acquire this piece of fancy art that's on a boat. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was
Call of Cthulhu. That's why.
Right. But so the guy that owns this boat, they say, is indebted to this vampire, is like serving this vampire in some manner. And he has this actress person that he's involved with, and she's pregnant. And so this is their daughter. And so the vampire that he's indebted to or serving has decided that it really just needs to eat this baby. Like it's
okay.
This is the next meal I need to have.
Right.
And so they've decided to, like, this vampire has been feeding the lady all sorts of special things, like you do, like when you're trying to plump up like a, like I'm going to feed this baby gosling lavender so that it will be imbued in this. So it's feeding it like a special nutrient and certain seasoning, basically diet to this pregnant lady so that the baby will taste how it wants it to taste.
Oh, and then you got to go like rescue the lady or something?
Well, she like in their thing, she's delivered in secret and the vampire doesn't know it yet. So the baby's actually hidden on board the yacht.
She just got a pillow under her shirt, basically.
I was like, that is just brilliant. But I never like considered the idea of a vampire like prepping a meal like in Hansel and Gretel sort of fashion, like I'm going to fatten you up, and he's like tricking her with the chicken bone.
Quite literally could be the first Jason Bourne movie, like what happens before, for Nice Black Agents,
because he's on the boat.
He's on the boat, and he gets thrown into the water. That's quite literally the very first Nice Black Agents movie right there. Bam, done. We made it. He forgot. Actually, Jason Bourne was in fact Nice Black Agent, and then he
just forgot. Babies are just a happy bit of mayhem in a game. That's what we learned with the Worms game too, right? Like, just babies are a terrible burden.
True story.
Because nobody, like even the evil characters, are like, I'm gonna just screw that baby. I'm leaving it here. No, you're not doing that. You're stuck with this baby. Right. It is completely helpless. You can't do anything with it.
That might actually be an entire show topic about how to do that to where it doesn't feel like you're just being saddled with something to hold you back in the adventure, to where it's like a compelling part of the story. Because like functionally, I realize it's what's actually happening, right? But like
it's exactly what's happening.
In order to make it work in a game, also, you have to have players that are okay with having the potential for that kind of thing happening or whatever, right? Yeah. Which may not work at every table, but, if it does, it adds a lot of drama, to the game or whatever. It's been fun when we've had
It's an intriguing problem.
Right. I thought we might mention Root. So the board game Root, we got it, and the expansion, the Riverfolk expansion as well.
So cool.
And we have played the bejesus out of that game. And it's essentially a war game, but every army has a different win condition, and their strategy and the way they operate is drastically different, right? So there are actually 7 different factions, right? Cats, birds, otters, mice, the vagabond.
And lizards.
Lizards.
I think that's it. There's 2 vagabonds technically.
Yeah, same thing. Okay, so there's only 6. There's only 6 of them. So, but each of them plays drastically differently. And fundamentally, I guess you could say it's a war game because you're trying to battle against each other in some way or another to score 30 points and win. And we have just played the crap out of that game. And I'm not I don't like Game of Thrones. I think it's a boring game anymore, right? Mm-hmm. It's just not my thing. And it's a war game, right? And fundamentally, that's what Root is, but it is so drastically different. And the fact that everyone works in such a different way adds a different level of complexity in terms of how I go against you and how I'm also trying to execute my own plan to win.
Right.
And so has been very, very cool. Plus that little forest creatures going to war is always just kind of fun. And I'm a big fan of Mouse Guard. I'm a sucker for it.
It's a really cute game.
So I found out after Googling some things and looking for some clarification on some rules and stuff, that Magpie Games has been asked to make a Root RPG.
Interesting.
So I'm kind of curious because the majority of what they have done is PBTA stuff, from what I have seen. I believe there may be some other things that they've done, but I believe the majority of them and their strength of the games that I have played that they produce that I really, really, really enjoy are all PBTA stuff. So I'm kind of curious to see if they go a different direction with this because I don't think it's going to be a PBTA game. So it could be cool to see how that would work. A Root RPG and then the board game. And then, I just think I find the entire idea pretty intriguing with board games and RPGs and the possibility of using them kind of back and forth, you know what I mean? To inform the story or whatever. So, because Birthright, I love Birthright back in the day. It was like a 2nd edition D&D thing, and you got to rule a kingdom, and there were rules for it and all that kind of stuff, and then you could go forwards and backwards through adventure mode and stuff, but it didn't really work super well. And then Dust Adventures came along, and Dust the minigame is really cool, and I like it a lot. And then Dust Adventures is really good, and it goes forward, backwards almost seamlessly. It's the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, and then I'm a little leery because that's like the standard for me now. So like that's a high bar, and this is a very different kind of game.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the intention is to be able to do that, but it would be cool if they did.
Yeah, no, that would be really
but it would
cool,
be really, really hard.
I'm not sure how you would.
No.
Because while it is kind of a war game, it's much less measured.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, it's like
there's more like zones on the board. It's not like, this is exactly where my piece is right now kind of deal.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. It just looks very cool, and I like the artwork, and it's very fun and thematic. And
I wonder if they will use the same artist for the RPG.
I'm sure they will
use for the game,
because one of the artists, I believe, is one of the part of the game company or a co-creator or something along those lines. So I would imagine it will all use the same artwork or whatever. But it's very cool. Could very easily be adapted into like a comic book or something as well, because the artist, it's fun. Just it's solid. It's strong artwork. It's very. Like, you can tell, there's lots of fuzzy woodland creature comics and cartoons and stuff and whatever. But, like, that's got its own very distinct style, right? Like, you could line those up with a couple other different woodland comic things, and I could be like, that's Root. That's it right there, right? In the same way that Mouse Guard has that same strength.
Yeah.
2 totally different styles, but both very strong in how they look and what they are. So, very cool. So I'm excited for that. I think it'll be fun. Maybe check it out. And
do you have a favorite faction? If you had to pick one.
So I've played them all except for the Vagabond. The Vagabond is my least favorite. I haven't played it, but when they're on the board, I find them frustrating. It's like you're so busy fighting everybody else that you lose track of the Vagabond, and the next thing you know, he needs like 6 points to win. Someone smack him. So, I think my favorite is... I don't know. I hadn't really played the cats until we played the most recent time when I played them, and they were kind of fun, but it was a different kind of challenge because you're so sort of, when we play with a lot of people, you're sort of spread out everywhere. It's like, oh my god. But the Woodland Alliance I had a really good time with, and the Riverfolk Trading Company was a lot of fun too. The lizards were cool. Really,
I love the idea of the River Folk Trading Company the best. Like, I don't know that I would like playing them the best, but I like the idea of them. Like, just mercenary river otters makes me giggle. And the name is perfect.
We did a terrible job of kind of explaining what Root is for anybody that doesn't know what it is, okay? So you mentioned that it's a war game, but I think the coolest thing about it is they took all the sort of factions that exist in modern conflicts and sort of made them into friendly little woodland faction creatures, right? So you have the cats, the Marquita cat, in fact, and they start off spread out all across the entire board, right? So they are sort of like the
current reigning party.
Right. Then
they're the status quo.
Yeah. Then there is the birds, which are called the Irie, and they are the old sort of the people that used to rule, right? And they're coming in and pushing people out. So they start off in one corner and have a lot of men in that one corner and can kind of expand from there, right? Mm-hmm. Then after that, you have the Woodland Alliance, which is sort of like the freedom fighters that exist inside these areas where there's this giant conflict, but they're not really on either side, one side or the other. They're just sort of resistance fighters like the Rebellion, right?
And tactically, they're sneaky, right? Yeah. Like they sort of like spread tokens that are unassuming, and then all of a sudden they start popping up everywhere.
Right. And then after that, then there's the Vagabond, which is sort of like this wandering adventure character, which doesn't fit into a modern conflicts type of thing, but they're just sort of a really interesting piece that exists in the game, right? Then after them is the Riverfolk Trading Company, which is sort of like, well, Blackwater. They sell resources and sell trips down the river, not like in the mafia kind of way, like in
actual trips
you
down
can
the river.
Use the river as a pathway to travel. And I think they're really an interesting kind of way.
They're the mafia. They can get you where you need to go and get you the resources you need.
Right.
And if you pay them the right amount, they can take that guy out for you.
Right, they'll fight for you. and then the lizard folk, I'm not sure if they fit into things in a modern conflict sense. So they're sort of like a cultist that don't really move anywhere, but they can spring up anywhere. So they're kind of similar to the Woodland Alliance in some ways because they can just spring up anywhere, but they don't really.
But the Woodland Alliance has to like lay a path of sympathy as they go. Like the lizard cult can literally spring up anywhere on the board.
Right.
They're like, so this is who's being picked on today. Well, guess what? They're going to join our cult now because they need something to believe in.
Right. So all of them play really, really drastically differently. So the way it was sold to us at Gen Con was that each of the armies plays a different style, so everyone has different kinds of styles of game that they favor or styles of play that they favor. So then you can all be playing the style of game you enjoy and all still be playing the same game instead of playing 6 different games, right?
I feel like maybe we should just review Root.
We probably should. It's kind of halfway what this is really already.
What's happening right now.
So it's just a really fun game. It's a lot of fun, and we've played the crap out of it with the 3 of our kids, and they've really enjoyed it, and they keep asking to play it, so it's been a good time. I guess the other new gaming news thing that I have, I took a picture of it and I posted it up, is that I got the Wraith 20 Deluxe Edition finally, like 2 years later.
So pretty.
And it suffered from the Wraith curse, and it is finally here, so now everyone can start harping on me about not running Orpheus, because the book is actually finally here. It's a real thing. I have it in my hand.
The Orpheus section, very slim.
Yeah, 27 pages, but
super slim.
I have all of the books still for Orpheus, so the storyline, so I'm going to see how to go through it and see how to adapt the mechanics, because they made them more aligned with the Wraith side of things. So the Orpheus powers are now Arcanoi from Wraith.
Interesting.
So, and they always kind of were close, but they differed in certain ways.
Like the stains? Is that what you mean by the Orpheus powers?
No. The actual powers, like Pandemonium and all that stuff,
okay,
are Wraith Arcanoi now. So I kind of like that they weren't initially, because they have their own flavor, but in terms of trying to reconcile the 2 games together, it makes sense to have them be Arcanoi. But I'm not entirely certain I like how that will look and play, because when you played Orpheus, it definitely didn't feel like a Wraith game. It felt like a game that involved ghosts, but it had its own thing, right?
Yeah, it's almost like It's like the World of Darkness Night's Black Agents, right? Like it's
right.
Like the vampire to Night's Black Agents connection is like the Ghost to Orpheus connection. It's like weaponized FBI sort of.
Well, it makes me sad because the reveal at the end of that game is pretty tremendous.
I really just wish they would have given it its own reboot because it's very much worthy of it. But I don't know. I guess it's a harder sell. I don't know why. Like, it's so good.
Well, okay. Just completely speculating here, right? Wraith wasn't one of their best-selling games, so it's not very popular to begin with, right? And it draws a lot from Wraith, right? It is distinctly its own thing, and it has its own flavor, but it does draw a lot from Wraith. So it already is at a disadvantage because it's not vampire, and it's not werewolf, and it's not mage, right? Those are the power three, right? The holy trinity of White Wolf or whatever, right? And so it's already got that part of it. And another thing is that it's sort of like a different style of game than most of your World of Darkness games. Not that that's bad. It's a great and amazing game, right? But it's not what you would think of in terms of a World of Darkness game necessarily.
So when it comes to like old school releases, so was it like Vampire came out first?
Yeah, Vampire's first.
Then
Werewolf.
Then
Mage.
Then
Wraith.
And then
Hunter.
Orpheus. Oh, then Hunter and then
Mummy. Might be Demon and then Orpheus, or Orpheus then Demon. It's at the very tail end of things.
So that's probably more of the issue than like if it had come out like after Vampire. You know what I mean? Because like at that point.
Okay, I don't think that it's that, though. I don't think it has to do with when it came out. I think it's the fact that it's a different style of game than the World of Darkness. It's also not designed to be connected directly to the World of Darkness in terms that there's vampires and werewolves and mages running around in it. Right. It's its own sort of setting. So I think that holds it back a little bit.
And that doesn't seem fair to me because there's a lot of other companies that do that have really good success with it.
You're right, but that's not White Wolf. That's not the World of Darkness. But and it's also at the time it came out, it's a self-contained game, beginning, middle, end, all that kind of stuff. And the storyline in it is amazing. But I don't know, it's just in a way, it is kind of a depressing game in the same way that Wraith is because of the way stains and angst work, right? Or not angst. What's it called? Spite. So, you're going to build it up and, you got to keep that under control. So there's just a lot of pieces to it that sort of make it its own.
But I feel like the fact that it's contained with a beginning, middle, and end makes that okay. Because, like thousands of people buy Edgar Allan Poe stories and they're still around. And, so you can't say that people aren't in the market for that kind of story because they are. Right. Not everybody, sure, but there's definitely a market for it.
Right. Well, I don't know. It's different. I think it may have done better if it didn't come out with the World of Darkness behind it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like if it was sold as its own thing, maybe, because I feel like there was probably a lot of people that was like, oh, Wraith ended, and then they put out Orpheus, right? And so they were. I think I always felt like
bought something that they weren't expecting.
No, more like
they were disappointed because
a lot of people didn't like Wraith to begin with, and so since there were a lot of people who were like, oh, that's the continuation of Wraith, is how they looked at it, which is not exactly what that is, and they were like, I didn't like Wraith anyway. I don't want to look at this. And that's always the vibe that I got from a lot of people when you mentioned it. And then if you had somebody that liked the game and kind of explained, no, it's so much more than Wraith and it's all this and blah, blah, blah.
Wraith, to me, is an entirely different kind of game because the sort of player versus player that you get with the Shadow is majorly different.
Man, we need to do that.
They are two totally different kind of games.
So I will say...
they may have the same pseudo setting, but they're night and day totally different
games. Well, here's something that and this is... could probably be developed out into a much larger discussion. So let me just get your 5-minute take on this, okay?
Okay. I'll
set my stopwatch on it. So, Wraith, right? Mm-hmm. I love Wraith is probably I do Vampire the most. I have the most experience at Vampire, tabletop, LARP, all this, blah blah blah, whatever, right? But Wraith is always. If you had to say, what is your favorite World of Darkness thing, it's got to be Wraith for me, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem with Wraith is it's sort of like this beaten down, depressing game. in a lot of ways, right? It doesn't have to be, but that's always this component of it because of oblivion and being driven towards nothingness and all that kind of stuff. It kind of brings up that kind of stuff. I've never really been able to get a real solid Wraith game up off the ground. And it's also partly because it's a different game and the plots and all that kind of stuff. But like, I don't know where I'm going, but like, it's like, why there are aspects of Wraith that are the coolest thing I've ever seen in almost any RPG. The way the shadow works, where I play my character and another person at the table plays the antithesis of my character and is just, its sole goal is to get me to go to oblivion, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I realize and will totally make the conceit that doesn't work at every table, because it just won't. There are some players who, one, don't enjoy that. Two, some players are just too vindictive and don't want to tell a compelling story. Instead, they just want to sort of drive and sort of break it, right?
Right.
So provided that you have good players that are willing and on board to do this, which we do, why does this game struggle to get off the ground so much? Because between that, the way angst works, and like, there are themes in Wraith that I feel like are supposed to exist in Vampire, but they really come across so much more in Wraith, right? What you have lost, right? Becoming a monster really comes across when you die and you're a ghost now, right? So why doesn't it I just can't seem to get it off the ground successfully. And
okay, so the player versus player thing, I see what you're saying, and that some people don't want to play that, I get, but I think if you set the expectation differently, in that, so on a lot of games, the point is, it's just like we did with 10 Candles, right? So like in a lot of games, the point is to, become epic,
right?
To live as long as possible. And you kind of want to tell a compelling story too, but you also want to keep your character alive, and you have these other goals you want to accomplish. So when we did 10 Candles, we talked about thinking about it differently, like, we all know we're going to die, so I wanted to tell a compelling story about how my end comes about. To me, you have to go into Wraith with that same sort of thinking. Like, I know that my existence is finite.
Right.
And these are the goals I have to accomplish before the end comes. And then you have to understand, like, okay, my goal then is to stay here and keep those things and hoard them. And then the person playing my shadow, their goal is to make those things to resolution so that I become a specter, right? And then I think it's pretty easy to get people on board. You just have to change what their focus is for how they're gaming. The hang up really for me is the investment that you're requiring from people. So Wraith is a wonderful, wonderful game, right? And it is a beautiful idea, like a terrible, sorrowful, beautiful idea. But it is so hard to execute, because when we sat down to do it, being somebody's shadow is a full-time mechanical job for me to keep track of you and to keep track of when I'm supposed to be pushing you and what I'm supposed to do. And then I have to take over your character. But I also have another character I'm supposed to be playing. Like, it's almost not manageable to ask that much from a player, because I'm trying to play me, but I'm also trying to keep an eye completely on what you're doing and interject in that and cause, like, there's actually mechanically a component where I'm supposed to compel you for roles.
Right.
And, if you have a player that's good about keeping track of that, is familiar with the system, and they can say, hey, I should probably make a roll for this. But, as a GM now, it's almost like every time you have, well, first of all, you have to have at least 2 players anyway, but it would be more interesting if you had more. But it's like you're doubling the amount of people you're actually managing for everyone at the table. And that's a huge mechanical problem. The
one thing that I will say that has been interesting in the times that I've done it, where I had a few successful games, right? Where I've had the game of success. I've launched the game successfully. My problem is keeping the momentum and continuing the game. The one thing that I think works well is assuming that you have players that are good at or are willing to do the PvP aspect with the shadow, right? They almost are like co-GMs in a lot of ways, because they're building, as the GM, you just get to sit back and watch the interaction between the two and take notes and be like, okay, they're tempting him this way. So then you can put things in front of either player to see them and for them to see, to tempt them to get involved with other things, right? So it's almost like you're running the game, but you also have 2 or 4 or however many co-GMs at the table with you who are just trying to make the other character's life interesting, right?
Right.
Because while they're trying to bring them into oblivion, generally the way you do that is by trying to steer them into situations that you know are their hot button issues for what that character's problems are, right? Mm-hmm. Where their flaws are, and poking at those flaws and trying to widen the cracks in their defenses and stuff. So that part of it makes it easier.
But it makes it easier as a GM.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Because it's hard to get a player. Like, I'm not here to run a game. I'm here to play and think about my character. And you're asking me to become a co-GM, possibly without me knowing that at the beginning.
Right. Well, and then
I think this game would play really well if you had everybody involved and you said, okay, you're not going to get a whole character. You're half of this character. Like, you guys split this character. Oh. And you're just going to play this person's shadow, and you're just going to play the regular character.
Oh, man.
And I think you would end up with a better result that way. Now, you'd have to have people that were willing to focus and, have a timeout and not have their spotlight time. But then I'm going to try so much harder because I want it to be my turn.
Right.
Right?
Well, that, and then not only that, but we've seen the amazing things that can come out of games like Bluebeard's Bride, where we're all playing aspects of the same person, right?
Right.
And that is really a cool way to look at that. Oh, wow. So if I pitched that to you, would you be okay with doing that?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Interesting. I never even considered, I think we mentioned it at some point, but it was just like, that doesn't make any sense to do it that way. But after, that's been ages ago, right? Mm-hmm. But now it's just an idea that was before its time, having played other games and seeing the way things work, especially Bluebird's Bride, done deal. It's easily possible and feasible. And I think you also have to change people's mind about being the idea that while the character is actually the Wraith, that doesn't mean the story that is told about the shadow is any less important, right?
And I think if you have it at the beginning in your session 0 is these two people making the character together to come up with a conflict that's interesting.
Yeah. How are you going to put that together?
And for the role-playing aspect, there's no reason that I can't talk and interact with this person. Mm-hmm. It's almost like when you see Venom, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's a conversation happening, but you're only hearing half of it. And so it just looks like the guy's talking to himself. It's basically the exact same thing, right? Like, I'm the Venom.
Yeah. Well, the other part of it is that I can't remember, it's been a while now, the specters have a hive mind, right? Mm-hmm. So if you had two shadows at the table, like two wraiths and two shadows,
they could pass
theoretically they could be communicating back and forth because there's a hive mind and they would theoretically know.
Absolutely.
That could be really interesting. That might be worth trying. I just have to come up with a strong enough wraith plot idea to push the game forward. That's easily doable, though, I think. That might be the way to go. But then you guys are going to be mad because I'm going to run a Wraith game before I run Orpheus. What was me? We mentioned Bluebeard's Bride in this whole process, and I backed the Kickstarter to get all the cool swag and everything else, right? And there was a mix-up with shipping. So I got the Book of Mirrors, which is the final book in the series to come out, and I thought that, or I was supposed to get the Deck of Servants and the Deck of Objects as well, and some mix-up with shipping or whatever, so no big deal. I thought they were coming from a different place, so I contacted Magpie and said didn't get these cards or whatever, and within a day or two, I had been emailed back, hey, sorry, we made a mistake, whatever, they're on their way now, and I got them today. So I have to say, accidents happen, it's no big deal, but they were really, really good about being on top of it and getting things taken care of and sending them to me. No hassle, no nothing. So big shout out, and super happy with the way that whole exchange went. It couldn't have been any better, honestly, And so they arrived today and opened them up, and they are a set of tarot-sized cards, which are the Deck of Servants, and then there's a Deck of Objects, which is a regular poker deck of card size, right? And so the artwork on them is the books are much more flashy, right? Mm-hmm. They, as an artifact, they are tremendous. The covers, the foil on them, they're just amazing. I really think, though, the artwork on these cards is better. I don't know if it's just because it's on a tarot card, so it's more evocative or whatever, but they are tremendous. Man, they are strong. I was just blown away as I was flipping through them and looking at them. And that is, well, first off, altogether, that is the best, strongest artwork, complete overall art design and art direction like as a physical product, I would pick it over to Genesis with these cards included in it.
It's a lot altogether, like the series of books, and it's
like
the whole thing is just gorgeous. Yeah, the fact that it didn't win at the Indies last year was just the most absurd.
I don't even want to talk about that. That was terrible. But it's to be honest, like the Indies are cool, but it is part of it is a popularity contest as well because it's fan voted. So you know, Bluebeard's Bride, not a game for everyone. And I don't think that's a dig at the game to say that because it's not. It's a very different style of game. And if you want to play horror and really kind of get deep in the weeds about, you know...
well, and obviously less of a following than Delta Green.
Because, yeah.
You know.
Right. So, I mean, you know, it's all good. You know, I'm not trying to put shots at them, you know, because it's like they made a great game too. But, oh, man. It's a strong artwork and strong design. All of it is just so good. So I don't know. So I thought they were very, very cool. And the first thing that I thought as I was going through them, you see a lot of extra cool swag to add to a game. Hey, get these cards. They can help you do this or whatever, right? But I really got them and was kind of like flipping through the tarot cards and stuff and looking at them. And I really thought these are a game aid that I would actually use.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that stuff you get, and it's like, oh, this is neat and cool to have, and I'll look at it, and it'll inspire me to run a game, but I'm not sure I'm actually going to bust these out at the table in the moment, right? And the tarot cards, the deck of items, I was like, I would just bust these out right at the table, guarantee it, and actually use these. These are something that would actually add to the game in the moment.
So Bluebeard's Bride is different than anything else I've ever run because it's built almost solely on spur of the moment inspiration. And when you look at those cards, there are like just looking at them without trying to think of something, you know, there's at least, you know, 4 or 5 things when you turn over every card that jump out at you that you could very easily spin something off of.
Right.
And yeah, so I would completely use them in a game 100%. Plus just, you know, the look of them. They're all a bit terrifying.
They're
like
really
if I'm being honest, like they're beautiful and terrifying.
Well, I think that's what makes them so compelling.
Like the Bluebeard's Bride game.
Is that they have this very, like, even there's a lot of female characters on the cards, right? Because it's about the bride, and the female characters that are on the cards, they're very elegant looking, right? And they have like they're beautiful. But
Did you think there were more female characters on there than male characters?
I'm not sure. I would have to go through and count, but
there were quite a few male ones too.
There were, yeah. But like
it was probably more female. But
the women they look very elegant and they're beautiful, but there's this darkness and this sort of sinister thing happening, right? And sometimes it's happening to the character on the card, but sometimes it's this sort of like hidden monster, right, behind this elegance and beauty. And I just so good, you know. I don't know. I know we rave about that game a lot, and I'm kind of, you know, going on. I'm gushing over it or whatever. I got the cards
and I was looking at them and I was like, I need to run this again.
Yeah. So
it is time. It's been a few months.
Definitely. Well, and that ties back to the Wraith thing about the mood of the game. And I forgot to ask you to go back to that real quick. You mentioned Wraith and Bluebeard, in fact, kind of being like this very specific story, right? And emotionally involved, right? Because there aren't many games where I've been playing them and been like, not horrified or like touched, you know, like, oh, you know, like this, you know, brought a different kind of emotional response out of me than most games do, right? And Wraith is kind of designed for that. So 10 candles, one shot, boom, do the game, here it is, it happens. Powerful game, powerful emotional game, right? Bluebeard's Bride, very similar, right? Powerful, emotional, whatever. It's easy to sustain that for a one shot. But doing that for a consistent game is a different process. And like you said, a different commitment as well. So does that...
I don't think that affects my decision. So what I want out of a Wraith game is for the games to be close enough together that... Like, I wouldn't mind playing it back to back to back, like every weekend for, you know, whatever, a couple months. But then after that, I would probably want to take a break for a couple weeks. And then, but it's one of those things where when you're keeping track of motivation in that way, like I don't want a lot of space between games because then I'm going to forget. Mm-hmm. I'm like that with any kind of vampire game. Like it's so like socially plot heavy,
right? That
if you take too long of a break, you forget your motivations and your contacts and like what you were working towards, right? It's not as easy as just picking back up your D&D game and going, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot more going on a deeper level.
I think with V5, that's kind of mitigated with the relationship map a little bit.
Yeah.
That helps, but I definitely...
It does help, but it doesn't
still... completely get rid of the problem.
Yeah. There's still a lot of like... the first episode when you come back is clunky if it's been a long time because you're trying to like re-figure out what was going on in the first place. So, but what I would say, even after we get done with like one shots with like Bluebeard or like 10 candles, it's not like everybody's like, okay, we're out of here now. Like those are the kinds of games, and Wraith is in there too. Like when this session is over, like I want time to like talk and hang out and talk about what happened in the game. And with Wraith, probably even more so because it's so individually player versus player instead of like a group kind of versus one person is kind of what you get in Bluebeard's Bride. And it's not even necessarily like competition, but it's kind of like that. But with this, it's very, you know, me versus you. Right. And so I would want... and everybody's a little different. So some people, you know, that we game with, if I do something personally against you, I know you're not going to hold that against me as a person, but you might just want space after that.
Oh, right.
But me, I just need you to talk to me. Like, I need you to talk to me as a friend, not playing this game. So that, you know, I know in my head that it's a separate issue, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't emotionally impactful in a very serious way.
Well, I think, I think that calls back to something from LARP, right? So we all played a lot of Mind's Eye Theater, and the fun of that game for me is stabbing my friends and getting stabbed by my friends and then stabbing them again and repeat, rinse, wash, repeat, right? And that is the fun of that game to me, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. But like you said, afterwards, we would always go out to eat somewhere. We'd go out to like Steak and Shake or something, and everybody's smoking and joking, and oh, you really got me, and how did you do that? And I didn't even know. And those, the moments in game are very intense, and man, like using the word I'm getting mad is the wrong way to say it because it's a fun kind of thing, right? Like,
well, I do get angry and frustrated, but it's not.
It's in the spirit of the game.
Yeah, it's what I signed up for.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Right. And that comeuppance in my mind is fun, and I understand that people don't necessarily like that and don't want to play that style of game. But I like to get over on someone and then have them get me back, and then this back and forth.
It's strategic.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's a purpose to it, and it's fun. You know, and I think that having a gaming group that has done that style of gaming before and find it enjoyable and fun makes it easier to do the Wraith thing because we all know this is part of the game, and we know we've done that before. We know I can do this and Lacey's okay. You know, she's going to be mad because I got her, but it's mad in the same way that you're playing something that you want to do well at and you want to succeed, and you beat me at this game. Okay, fine. But guess what? We're going to keep playing, and eventually I'm going to get mine too, right?
Right.
Right on. All right, well, very cool. It's turned into a whole bunch of different things. I don't know, little Root, little Wraith, little Bluebeard, I don't know. Yeah, should we wrap this one up here? I don't know. We're about in an hour or whatever.
I guess we're having a gaming roundtable.
Fair enough. All right, so I goofed last week and I forgot to read the actual Gonna Geek promo because I'm entirely a moron. But so we are a member of the Gonna Geek Network. So quick Gonna Geek promo for Pop X Podcast, episode 89, Marvel Netflix discussion, Punisher Season 2, and Aquaman review, and more. Recovering from the holiday break, Pop X makes its return in 2019 with a very hot topic concerning Marvel's departure from Netflix and the future of our beloved superheroes from the streaming platform. We offer insight to the future of Marvel's streaming sagas, as well as a review of Season 2 of The Punisher, a film review of Aquaman, and so much more. So you can check them out on the Gonna Geek Network, and that's the Pop X Podcast, episode 89. So super bummed because I heard Jessica Jones got canceled, and so did Punisher. I think Marvel's taken all of their TV shows off of Netflix, which is kind of a bummer. Yeah, I don't know. I heard some of the ratings had come down or whatever, and I don't think you haven't watched Jessica Jones, have you?
Parts of it.
So I liked it a lot. I thought it was very good. I think she's a cool character. She's like a real flawed, like a flawed and a real person kind of a way.
I'm a sucker for an anti-hero.
Right,
so.
yeah. And it's just really good. Now, I do think that at the end of the last season, the thing that happens with her friend is kind of, well, comic booky. You know? And I realize it's a comic book show, but the writing in some of those have gotten so much better that, you know, you kind of expect a little bit more, I guess. But still really good. Really liked it. And the second season of Punisher is wicked good too. I don't know if you would enjoy it, but it's...
I like the Punisher.
Yeah.
Like I said, anti-hero.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Punisher, Spawn, Ghost Rider.
Right on. So sad.
Batman, really, to a large degree.
So sad that Ghost Rider movies weren't better.
More better.
Yeah, that's sad. Because Ghost Rider's wicked cool.
I like the Ghost Rider movies.
Yeah, they're all right. I want them to be good like the Avengers is good. Like that quality of writing and stuff in them. And not like the...
I'd have to watch them side by side.
I've watched them recently, and...
It's been a while since I've
While I
Ghost
enjoy
Rider
them
movies,
because
so.
it is Ghost Rider, I'm telling you what.
Not great.
They don't stand up compared to some of the newer superhero movies for sure. So
That's fair.
Quick shout out to all of our Patreon supporters, Todd Olson, the OG, Alan White, and Simon McNair. So thank you for supporting the show. And if you want to be awesome like Todd, Simon, and Alan, you can, and you like what you hear here, you can hear here. If you like what we do, you can support us at patreon.com/justonemorefix. Lots of cool stuff there, and actually lots more to come. We've got some new projects in the works. Don't really want to announce right now because they're still in the works, getting things finalized and finished up. So a lot more to come there. But you can get early access to our shows, raw shows, pre-shows, and all that kind of stuff. Lots of awesome. I don't know, I'm rambling. You can also give us a rating and a review at iTunes or wherever you find us at. I think that'll do it for us, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. This has been an episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at incompetech.com. You can support us at patreon.com/justonemorefix or follow us on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix.